Can you tell us a little bit about how people can protect themselves on social media from being exploited by OSINT techniques and maybe talk a little bit about what open source intelligence is?
Sure. So open source intelligence really refers to anything that can just be found publicly online. Um, there are certainly things that take a little bit more diving into or that hackers might get into that's not considered open source. So for us as investigators, we do a lot of work with OSINT. We typically will start with somebody's social media or with their general online presence. And we see a lot of things out there that probably make it easy for us. And if it's easy for us, it's easy for anybody with the right skill set. So I'm happy to talk about privacy because I think it's something that gets overlooked a lot. So one of the things that I see probably the most often, and it's the lowest hanging fruit, is public accounts. Why do you have to have it publicly available if you generally have a friend group, you don't have a real basis to need to be found? It's obviously different if you're a sole proprietor and your brand and your business is kind of yourself, or with influencers, stuff like that. But by and large, most people don't really need to have a public account. Um, so that's probably the lowest hanging fruit, especially with Facebook. It's a little bit of a thing to get it to be truly private. The settings in there, I'm sure most people have tried or done some of that tinkering. There's a lot you kind of have to do to really get it to the point where it's private. So the thing that I recommend for anybody who's worried about this, and just as a square one, is actually to go into an incognito browser, go into something where you're not logged in to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, and look at your account for the way that somebody would if they weren't connected to you, if they didn't know you, and see what actually comes up. Because I think it's really hard to know what is actually out there just from looking, setting the privacy settings and walking away.
Everyday people online look very closely at your background. Like they look very closely at that picture over there and they're like, what's that of? And they identify like the color and like what brand that is. Not that that's a specific brand, but like, they notice very granular details and they're quick to point that out. I've noticed.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it's funny because, for us, we're like trained to do that. I would say my friends and family know better at this point. They know I'm going to point out the weird thing that they didn't notice. But it's certainly pretty common with a lot of people across the internet. And then the other, outside of photos, I think even with text, there are a lot of really normal things that people are used to doing. So something that I present on pretty regularly in this realm of privacy is, if I see a photo that's somebody saying happy birthday to somebody, that's never done at a later time. That's not something that people wait on to do. So now, whether they want this or not, I know their birthday. If it's something like happy 30th birthday, now I know your actual full birthday because that's rolling back the year. I can do a lot with that. And anybody online can do a lot with that. It's not even because I have specific tools. Like if I have your full birthday from a post like that, it's going to be pretty easy for me to also figure out who might be in your family or who your closest friends are. I can then take that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of data aggregators out there that just publish everybody's personal information. So it's not difficult to figure out this person with this name and this birthday in this general area. A lot of people might be good about not posting their exact city, but you can get an idea of what part of the country or even state somebody lives in. It just makes it really easy to then say, okay, well, in background data aggregators, I'm getting this person who's in about the right place with the right birthday. Oh, and look, like this person that they talk to all the time on social media is actually supposed to be somebody they're related to. Now I have your address, potentially your phone number, your email. I can do a lot with that. I can start going down all these other rabbit holes to really say, okay, well, what does your house look like? I can go to Google Street View and look and see what your house looks like, There's just a lot of things that can be done with some very simple pieces of information. And like I said, it's not a problem until it is a problem, until the wrong person gets interested. And then at that point, that you can't put that cat back in the bag.
You mentioned uh, not being explicit with your profile, not having it public, and probably not posting the wrong pictures with information like your street number. But also for parents, I know, and grandparents, they get excited when there's a new baby in the picture and they literally want to post a picture. And obviously, like when birthdays and holidays come around, they want to post more pictures with that child. And for me, I personally kind of freaked out a little bit later on down the line that, oh my gosh, even though my profile is private, I still have like hundreds of followers on even just like my private Instagram, which I no longer have. But when I did have it, it was like they can, I don't know these people that well. I know maybe 20 of them kind of well, but at its core, it's like it's a much smaller circle that I actually care to see my kids. Even though I'm proud of them, I'm like, maybe I don't need them to know that much about my life. I don't need them to know intimately like what I did this afternoon or, with my children, or like what we had for dinner, what the inside of my house looks like. Like maybe they don't need to know all that stuff because the children can't consent to being photographed. They don't understand. They're just like, oh, this is a part of everyday life. I don't know that my likeness is being shared on social media. And so there's that caveat that I feel like would be a concern for children later on in life if it's like an embarrassing picture, or like an embarrassing video that they didn't really want out there, but now is permanently out there. And then, second of all, is just like, there are a lot of creeps, especially on Instagram and, TikTok, wherever. Do you recommend that people just not post that type of stuff at all online? Or do you think they can still have like this social media presence that they curate and they want to share with people? Or is that like me just fear mongering? Am I weird for like bringing that up?
Oh, no, I'm the same way with my children. There was kind of a hard and fast rule from the get with them that even my family, we kind of had to make it known that we did not want a lot of that. And that's really tough. I mean, like you said, grandparents, family, like people love the babies and they're really excited about them. And to kind of, it's a tough conversation to have because you're kind of taking something away. I think there's some cultural issues here. Really, for me to say people should do X, Y, or Z, honestly, you're only going to get away with what you can get away with in your family unit. My thing about that is it kind of goes back to the first thing I said, which is, I know that all my accounts are completely private or just don't exist. My family might not be that way. My family are the people that I talk to say, why does your profile need to be public? Because honestly, if they all have private profiles and they want to put these images on their profiles, I feel a lot better about that than I do if it's public. And not to say that, Facebook now has those photos somewhere in their archive or, whatever you want to go down that rabbit hole with the data that these social media sites might actually keep. That's kind of another issue, but just on a day-to-day basis, what can people learn about like my family, what my kids are doing? Is it going to come back to haunt my kids? You're doing a lot better with privacy settings than you would be otherwise because, I think everybody knows at this point, once an image is out there on the internet, it's out there. You're probably not going to ever reel that back. And at least for the time being with social media, if it's private, far fewer people would be able to pull it down and do anything with it that would really have it be proliferated in that way.
What should people do to protect their identity if they're going to be out here making comments on other posts that maybe other people don't agree with, and therefore they're like, oh, I want to dox this person because they have all this information in their profile?
Yeah, and I think to some extent that is going to come from understanding your own risk profile. So if I'm somebody who wants to comment, like you're saying, on other people's posts, if I'm only ever commenting like, I love this is great, we did the same thing, whatever positive types of comments, I think it's really unlikely that somebody's going to come look at my profile and do any of the things that you're talking about. If you're going to act like a troll, you're going to open yourself up. If you're going to be negative, if you're going to be combative, even just with something that's pretty normal in this day and age of like arguing over politics on a
Right.
public post or something, who disagrees with you, they could absolutely go and look at your profile and say, who is this person? I don't like them. I want to do XYZ. If you're engaging in that kind of activity, then absolutely, like, make sure everything is private and do not have that bio. Do not tell people things about yourself if you're going to be putting yourself in situations where you might draw that kind of attention. That's just a higher level of risk than for the average, just living your life, don't comment on anything ever type of individual. So I think it really comes from just understanding the ways in which you might be opening yourself up. And, that changes depending on your exact, all of the things that go into what make up a person. So, like, for me, because I'm female, I would probably just veer that way anyway. So, like, all of that kind of plays into it. You really just need to understand what your personal situation is and then look at what is out there through that lens. And it's not just social media too, right? Like, it's everything. Knowing what is out there about you on the internet, I think, is crucial. Like, you have to Google yourself. You have to look yourself up in all the ways that somebody could look you up. So, like you said, if you have the LinkedIn in your profile, so it's really easy for somebody to find out that you work for X, Y, or Z company, Google that. Google your name and that company. See what else is coming up. Like, when somebody has that information, what are they going to get next?
I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat about this really important topic. Again, this is Megan Kohls from Upstream, private investigator.